researching this a couple of years ago, like Greg said, and one thing that kind of seemed apparent to us was that there's a lot of similarities to the Pocketqube community, which is a small satellite community that we're part of, and we help get people to orbit, and we've done that for a while. But certainly it seems that the Nightlights community is a lot of cool stuff happening, but it's not very well connected. That's in, hopefully a lot of the talks today, people are, all working generally towards the same direction, but it's kind of siloed. So really part of the event was to start and bring people together and work on new use cases of the imagery and just share best practice, basically. There's a lot of papers out there, but it just seemed that people maybe weren't, sharing that knowledge very freely in some sort of like conference style sort of workshop type forum. So that's like why we've done the event. And also we also have some sort of interest in the spacecraft side of things, because we actually build spacecraft. So I'll just give you a kind of overview of who we are, what our background is. Obviously, we have things online that people can go check us out, but this will be specific about our imaging satellites, particularly Nightlights, and then where we're going with that. So our vision is basically to, or sort of our belief really, that satellite imagery of night should be commercially available, it should be affordable, it should be high resolution, and it should be dependable enough to build new and existing use cases and potentially business use cases on top of that. It seems to us that that's really something that's missing in the community just now. There's obviously 3 or 4 different sources of data, and each of them have sets of pros and cons, and we think there's a bit of a gap for a dependable, reliable satellite stream that's high res, basically, or relatively high res, I should say, compared to existing options. So yeah, this is us. This is our team. We're about 15 people just now. We're based in Glasgow, Scotland, albeit we're now a US corporation. And we also have a German subsidiary. So we actually technically 3 Alba Orbitals, 1 in North America and 2 in Europe. And all our ops are primarily in the UK. We have Earth stations out in Germany for talking to spacecraft, but essentially that's how we're set up. I founded the company back in 2012, so we're coming up to 9 years old now, which is kind of crazy. Most of my vast majority of my adult life has been building Alba, and I think the thing that's probably the coolest achievement in our history is we managed to bootstrap ourselves to orbit, which basically means that we managed to get a number of satellites to orbit without taking external investment, which is typically seen as like a near impossible challenge for fledgling startups to do. So that's kind of our background. So kind of our credentials in terms of satellite building and launch. We've launched 6 satellites to orbit so far. So that is basically more Pocketqube satellites than any other organization in the world at this stage. We have another 9 that have already shipped out to Cape Canaveral for a launch with SpaceX, and that was actually supposed to go up in January, but it's been pushed into a June launch. So when that goes, that'll be 15 that we've launched, and these are primarily ride shares. We aggregate other customers, so they come to us with their satellite they developed. We aggregate it and we launch it, but we also develop our own platforms. So we've flown 2 Unicorn satellites, which I'll talk about in a second, and we essentially do all the technical chain, from image capture all the way down to receiving the image and serving it up for folks. And we have lots of customers and stuff. Some big name ones are Stanford and Carnegie Mellon and TU Delft and the European Space Agency. I'm not really going to stress the use cases of Nightlight data. I mean, I'm probably preaching to the choir, to be honest, in this one. And you guys have probably, I think all the talks so far have done a much better job at explaining people's interest in Nightlight data than I possibly could. But needless to say, we see that there's obviously a lot of applications of nighttime imagery, imaging Earth at night. My talk will be a little bit more just about the space segment and the satellite portion of that, because I don't really feel I can do justice on the application side of things. So, because we have lots of great talks, and I think I'm not going to sort of to follow that one up, but that's sort of where we are. But in general, we see lots of use cases. They've been talked about. And really, the thing that's needed, obviously, is like good, reliable EO data and good resolution that's dependable. And that's what we think we can help the community with. So the hardware. So our satellite platform is called Unicorn. Unicorns are Pocketqube. Pocketqubes are sub 1 kilogram satellites, and Alba is the world leader in that sort of technology. We've developed a bunch of stuff. Basically, we've developed the full platform. So we developed the world's largest deployable solar panel for any spacecraft under about 100. Well, yeah, it depends how you classify it, but it's certainly the most powerful spacecraft under 1 kilogram, if not under like 5 kilograms, with our big wing. We have a full pointing system, so an ADCS. So basically, that allows us to point the spacecraft. So no other company or any other organization in the world has been able to make an ADCS as small as we have. So that's something that's pretty unique to us. And we've developed a high-speed S-band downlink. So that allows us to get images down. And we're the first people in the world to do that for pico satellites, essentially. So that's kind of our background. We're a pretty hardcore technology R&D house on that side of things. And really, why am I mentioning this? Well, this is basically going to be our tool to build a constellation of satellites to image the Earth in unique ways. And yeah, that's the background. So as you can see, there's the lens, there's the sun sensor, there's the radios, and these are some of the magnetorquer rods there. And this is the antenna up this bit here, so you guys can see that. So Unicorn 2A. Unicorn 2A, ironically, is not our first satellite. There's been a Unicorn 1, and there's been a Unicorn 2B and 2C. 2B and 2C have actually launched already and actually re-entered. So it's a little bit out of sequence. So if, just for you guys to know the numbering scheme. So as you can see, this is one of our engineers holding the satellite. So for a sense of scale. We can do 24-meter resolution on that. RGB. Its wavelength is 62 kilometers by 48, and we're flying on a SpaceX flight in June. Essentially, we integrated that in October. It was due to go on a January flight, but like I say, it was pushed back. And that's going to go into a sun-synchronous orbit, so basically a polar orbit. And yeah, we're quite excited by that. And it's currently out in America. This is Unicorn 2D. So Unicorn 2D is also integrated in deployers out in the US when on the rocket to go. This is a much smaller camera, so you can see in the picture there. We basically built a satellite in about a week, essentially. So this was basically almost a spare parts satellite. We had some space, some customers didn't make it in time, so we decided to build another Unicorn and put it in the pod. And that's one of the great things about being a rideshare aggregator is you can do these sort of things. Much lower resolution, but really the idea for this satellite is to just see what we can get on a big scene, so big swathe width. So we're 640 kilometers by 480 kilometers and about just under 200 meters per pixel. So still would be higher resolution than VIRS, but not really super high res. But the great thing about that is you can see like a country or you can see a large region. And that too is currently in a pod out in America. So here's like another satellite. So A and D are out in America and they've been built. 2E is the next satellite that we're working on. Essentially, that will be similar to 2A from a specs perspective. So it's going to be 24-meter GSD, so same lens. We'll probably change the sensor to be more sensitive to low light. We're still playing around with what exact sensor we'll use in the final commercial operation, and we're trying different things on these tester satellites to see what works best. And I'll explain a little bit of the timeline in a second, but that's basically where we're at. And yeah, obviously similar specs on the resolution and space width to 2A. And that's currently under development internally. So expect to hear more news about that in the near future. The cool thing about Unicorn is they're very small satellites, and actually they'll fit within a tray. So we actually have, I think, 20 trays in-house. We actually have licenses to fly 20 Unicorns out of Germany through our subsidiary. And so we're ready to go in pretty much all aspects of the business to get into service. And this is within our clean room. You can see different parts and whatnot, all the components. Yeah, essentially we've been able to demonstrate monthly production rate, which is of 1 spacecraft per month, which is really good. We also build ground stations as well. So we actually built our own ground station, which is currently going through testing just now. But as you can see from the picture, it's essentially a 2-meter dish on a platform. The platform is essentially a trailer, which is fully autonomous. So we can essentially tow it to some location anywhere on the planet, leave it, and as long as there's, it can see the sun at some point in the day with solar panels, and there's some sort of backhaul network, like a 3G, 4G network, we'll be able to talk to the ground station, which will ultimately talk to the satellites. And the first Earth stations in Germany. Hardware. So this is within our clean room. This is some happy customers from one of our early launches. So we have all the facilities in house, and if anybody happens to be in Glasgow or in the UK and they're into Nightlights and they want to come see a satellite factory, then just hit me up or hit Greg up or someone at Alba, and we'll be happy to show you guys around. Obviously, when COVID allows that to happen, and yeah, we'd be really excited to show people, where the Nightlight images actually come from. So yeah, timeline to service. So basically, we're shooting for June flights for A and D just now. So that's tracking fairly well, and all the hardware is gone for that. December would be the 2E flight. And that would be another sort of upgrade on the existing platform. And I can come on to a sec about what we're doing for the early access to that imagery. And really from early 2022, we'd deploy Unicorn 2F onwards. So really the goal there is to launch a bunch of Unicorns ultimately. How many is still a little bit TBC. It sort of depends a little bit on the market demand. And just generally, obviously, it's largely market demand at this point. If there's demand, we can, fill that up with, as many Unicorns as required to give the capabilities. And yeah, ultimately, our longer term goal is to really build a big fleet of Earth observation satellites. That's kind of where we're moving towards as a company. And we think that technology is getting to the point where that's going to be really important moving forward. So we're targeting early 2022 for commercial ops for first images to customers for Nightlights off a Unicorn. So the capabilities of the service, basically 25-meter GSD. So I think we're pretty comfortable on that now. We've got a lens there that does the job. So we're quite happy with that. Spectral bands, initially it would be RGB. We are really open to adding more. That's something that we're totally open to. I think for our point of view, we're just trying to calibrate the market interest. So if people say, hey, I'm willing to pay for this band, I really, really want it, then the great thing about us is that we're vertically integrated. So, we can go modify a satellite, within a couple of weeks and then get that on orbit, within a few months. So that's kind of the cool thing with us and the way we're set up. Image size about 62 by 48. Coverage. So initially it'll be a tasking based system. essentially we're tasking initially because we're downlink limited. We don't have enough spacecraft to do the full Earth, say, once a month, like the VIR system. And also we have a lot more data because we're much higher resolution. So there's even more like sort of pressure on the spacecraft. So that sort of creates a kind of a tasking bottleneck. So basically it's going to work on a kind of first come, first serve basis with customers and a queue and stuff. And I can kind of explain a little bit about that. But our aspiration, assuming there's market demand and we can reach that, is to move to monthly global composites at 25 meters. That would be really a goal that we're trying to shoot for. I think we're still a little bit unsure about the market demand for that. So certainly, absolutely, having early adopter customers is like super important for us to go build that. So certainly, if it's of interest, then let us know. The use cases initially we see is really just cities. So we see that that's really going to be like what the unicorns are probably best at. So small scenes, high resolution than what's out there. And eventually we move towards the bigger ones. Now, obviously, we have something like Unicorn 2D who can theoretically do these bigger scenes and lower resolution. And if it turns out that people want that as opposed to the super high res stuff, then obviously we might change the sensors to go the other way. So we're really just sort of driven by what people are willing to go for and actually buy. So yeah, so obviously we'll let the market decide on that one. But this is our initial thoughts. And eventually, obviously, we want to be able to do everywhere 25 meters once a month. So this is our provisional pricing model. This is essentially just like sort of rule of thumb and something that's obviously likely to vary. But initially, our main problem is going to be just tasking. So we're working on a $1 per square kilometer model. So an image would be approximately 3K US. But obviously that isn't for like the full Earth. Like as people want more, we're gonna there's big price breaks the more we do, obviously. So this is just like to get early adopter access. I think we're around the sort of 10 images a day to 15 images a day on the current downlink and the current ground station setup. So we are quite limited on how much we can bring down, and we also have to bring down telemetry and we're going to have like cloudy images and stuff. So the total useful imagery on the earliest satellites will be really constrained. So that's basically why we're doing sort of an early access program. So basically folks will be able to essentially like stick their space down in the queue. So if people are interested in this and they're like, hey, I really want to, get some higher res Nightlights data, and I'm willing to wait to 2022, then essentially we're doing it on a first come first serve basis. It's a 10k euro down payment, and it's fully refundable, and basically that secures your space in the queue. So what we've done just now is that we have a tasking list essentially internally of objects of interest, and essentially there's going to be a commercial version of that where once we've run through just some early calibration, essentially it'll be a first come first serve basis. So if people want to image their object of interest, whether it's Syria or Myanmar or whatever the region is, for whatever reason, then obviously this is how we're running it, and that would be for the first 4 images essentially. We will do price breaks as people buy more and more quantities, and we bring on more and more capability. So if that's of interest, then we have a website, and people can reach out to me personally, and I'm happy to chat to them about that. And yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at doing. Future Nightlights workshops. So yeah, basically, the whole idea for this actually came. We wanted to do it in person. This came from pre-COVID times, and there was a very basic plan to do it in person that never really got that far. Yeah, essentially, we would like to do it in person down the road. It seems like there is quite a lot of interest. I mean, I've been looking at the numbers, and we're probably like 60, 70 people on the stream. So that's it's a decent audience for sure for the first event. And we're hoping that there'll be an annual event where next year we'll be able to widen the audience some more. And yeah, hopefully there'll be more use cases, more satellite imagery coming on stream, and yeah, really just more things happening in the community. That's kind of like what we're hoping for. We have a Twitter account as well, so I'm sure some of you guys and girls are following it. But that's where we've been sort of tweeting updates and things, and just trying to let people know what we're up to. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've got. Like I said, people can drop me an email, just Tom at Alba Orbital, if they want to chat about Earth observation data and imagery and things like that, and specifically nightlights. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got.